breathe in and out of the tongue like that. Take a deep breath in and then relax.
Yo, how you doing, Rich?
I'm doing well. I just got back from
Good.
Mexico and back in the
Good.
States now.
How are you feeling to be back stateside? Well, first off, how do you feel just coming off of holiday or vacation? Because that's usually always a good thing. Or let's say this: we go on holiday, we go on vacation. You know, what I'm saying, so that we can kind of like let go of what we have going on in our daily lives, trying to break the monotony. So, how do you feel about the fact that you were able to break the monotony? You were able to recharge your batteries, as we might say.
I don't know about recharge because it was pretty eventful. So,
Okay,
I
okay,
didn't really get too much sleep. But yeah, we went to Oaxaca, Mexico. Super nice, very beautiful. A lot of beautiful art. A lot of the food is amazing. Street
okay,
art. The people are really nice.
okay,
The nature is very beautiful. It's a very beautiful place. Yeah.
okay. All right. So, well, we talked about trying to break out of the monotony, and usually one of the things that we do to break out of monotony or to make things seem not so normal is art. You even said just a few seconds ago that art, the street art especially, and I saw some of the videos and things that you posted, the murales on some of the buildings and art in general, especially in that part of Central America, South America, has a lot of history. What did it invoke in you by seeing some of this different art?
Well, I think it definitely evoke emotion of good feeling and
Okay.
just content and joy to see such beautiful art that speaks to my soul, and
Okay.
it's really just a really beautiful place. And even beyond the visual art, the food, the culinary art scene there is amazing too. Because like they take such pride into like how they prepare food, and they do a lot of restaurants do a lot of traditional Oaxacan style food with modern twist and incorporating everything from Italian to French to American to Spanish and all the Japanese,
Okay.
Asian, all infused into like the Oaxacan style. So the culinary art scene is very beautiful there too.
Okay. So
Also,
so
that
in
speaks
in
to
the
my
yeah.
stomach.
So in the serving of food, they also take pride in that the presentation of the dish.
Oh
So
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay,
Most
okay,
places,
okay.
except for
So
that, you go to
they didn't like slop shit on like a plate. Like here you go. They're like did it seem like for example, one of the things we think about because like we said before, art is immense.
Mhm.
The variety of what we can think about when we think about art. Art can be anything from, like we said before, murales or music, acting, or even food. And so, for example, when they were serving food, did you feel like you were eating in a Mexican style Michelin restaurant sometimes in the way
Well,
they presented food to
we
you?
did go to mostly the nice restaurant because is
Okay,
super inexpensive compared to
okay,
Los Angeles prices,
okay,
and so like the one Michelin restaurant we wanted to go to, it was closed actually, so that was kind of a bummer. It was closed for the weekend because they actually got their Michelin star, so they were just I guess they were celebrating. But
okay, okay,
yeah, for the food there, the presentation, even if you go to like a mom and pop store, the presentation is still nice. They put it in their bowls. Everything is taken with such pride. We didn't do any of the street food.
okay.
Um, but I heard the street food was great too. But sometimes street food can be hit or miss. So if you don't know the
Yeah,
right time,
exactly.
you can set yourself up for upset stomach. So that wasn't. We're just going to the regular
With
cafes.
that, with that mud butt, set yourself up for that mud butt.
You got that mud, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Like
I
the
don't think
Saturday
that's one of the things
night
that
on
you
a
want.
Snickers bar.
Yeah, exactly. That mud butt, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So wait, so when we think most people when they think about Mexico, as far as art goes, we think about Diego or Frida, her husband, or his wife, Frida Kahlo. But a lot of her artworks involve so much vivid and vivacious colors. Did you see that when you were there?
That's the whole. Everything is colorful: red,
Okay.
yellow, blues. They use
Okay.
those like the rainbow colors, pretty much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was in a gay pride parade. No, just joking. No, but
Yeah.
they use the colors. They use those bright colors of the rainbow in
Okay.
pretty much everything. Even in the color of the food, from like the different colors of mole, to
Okay.
like the sauces and stuff like that is presented in different colors. So everything is like is gastronomy at its purest. So gastronomy at its
Okay.
purest,
Okay.
like
Well.
with both the physical and the visual presentation. I mean, the visual and the presentation, and with the taste and the way it tastes, and then like the different layers of the taste. So
Okay. Okay. Well, so do you think that? Well, do you think that we often say that art mimics reality? Do you think that that's the reason why they have so many vibrant colors in a lot of their art, because they're trying to mimic um, nature, or what's natural?
why don't I think they use a lot of vibrant colors because they are very in tune with nature, and and Oaxaca is one of the most culturally diverse areas in Mexico, and not diverse with like blacks, whites, and stuff like that, but and diverse with the indigenous people. So there's a lot
Okay.
of different.
Okay.
There's like there are hundreds of different types of tribes there. It's people
Okay.
like the native dialect people. There's a lot of people who speak a lot of it. There's a lot of different dialects also in that region. So
Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. That's even speaking, even public speaking is an art, right? But and the reason why, when we talked about, today's topic, and I was really thinking about it because you have your own art in your teaching style. So do I, and our sister, in her ways, she's artistic, and we grew up with a very, very, very a father who had a very, very high prowess in art. He was a musician playing multiple instruments. He was a painter. And for sure, those weren't just the limits of his artistry. So what I'm saying is, how important do you find that art is in your personal life? Um, not necessarily now, because probably you're probably more appreciative of a lot of things. For like with myself, as you grow older, you start to appreciate even the simpler things in its pure artistic, impure or imperfect forms. But even 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years, 30 years ago, how do you feel about how did art affect your life?
you know,
What
I
impact?
think I think when we were young, since my dad was an artist and a musician, which is also a form of art. Um, we kind of. I think I probably took it for granted. I think most kids did.
Uh-huh.
But as I got older, start traveling the world more, start going to museums, and not even so much going to museums, just walking the streets, especially being in Europe like yourself, where everything, the architecture and everything is so old, and there's a great feel for artistry in
Hmm.
Europe, especially in Italy. Whereas America, some things can tend to be a little bit more on the generic side,
Okay. Okay.
unless you go to some of the older cities like Detroit or New York, where the
Okay.
buildings and the architecture and the layout is done in a much more artistic way.
Okay. Okay.
So, and the more I travel, I really just start really identifying with art, and just also being in nature. I also enjoy the art of nature itself. I think that's where most great artists do find their inspiration from, is kind of imitating nature itself. And I think that's why a lot of the people in Oaxaca, Mexico, they have a very divine relationship with nature. So that's why they probably have so much vibrant colors, not only in their physical paintings, but also their food and their culinary scene.
Yeah. All right. Well, so like you said before, those who seem to be connected to or in tune with nature or with Earth, they seem to be, how can I say, more emotionally intelligent when it comes to the art scene, right? But sometimes it can also be kind of like thrown onto us. When we think about especially Renaissance Europe, that's where art started to really thrive. And it was kind of like they were, like a lot of people were like not going bankrupt, but they were spending fortunes just to commission a piece of art. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna get Michelangelo up here. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give him, what I'm saying, so much money so that he can make a statue, or I'm gonna give Da Vinci's, X amount of money so that he can finish this and this and this, which he had problems finishing. A lot of things in his history, but and it kind of became like part of like the natural culture, let's say, to become artsy or appreciative of arts. Like you said before, in some of the older cities in America, you might find that new deco art scene. When we talk about New York City skylines, the older skylines, or the Detroit, the Penobscot building, the GM building, not GM, or yeah, the Renaissance Center, even, but my question is for you then: is it possible to have art forced onto a person, and that art being objectively beautiful?
So say the first question again.
So what I'm saying is that, is it possible for us to actually see art as something objectively beautiful because of so many people saying, "Oh, this is beautiful, this is beautiful, this is beautiful." You
Yeah,
understand?
I mean, and that's always art. I think art is a very subjective thing, but of course, when there's a consensus of people liking certain things, it kind of by de facto it becomes subjective. I think, I mean, objective. It's kind of like, that's the way most things work. It's like if
But that's like purveying, and being a fake news purveyor,
yeah.
and just if you say it enough, it becomes or true. No, that doesn't happen, though, right? Art,
Well, it's not a science, it's not a mathematics. So of course, it can never be objectively
okay.
correct or not correct if it's good or not. But eventually, people just start creating metrics, and then people take these metrics as saying this is objectively beautiful as a piece of art. That's the way art dealers sell their art. They have metrics. They quantify it also. You know what I'm saying?
Art, well, how
But
do you?
but it does go to what you're saying. Eventually, people can say, if a whole bunch of people say this art is a great piece of work, like say like the Mona Lisa, for instance, which is kind of mediocre compared to the rest of the art that was created at that time, and but it got so much praise by everybody. I think everybody kind of like just it became a self fulfilling prophecy or fulfilling prophecy that it was a great piece of art.
Yeah. Well, all right, so yeah, perfect. So we talk about this objectivity and subjectivity, like you said. If so many people subjectively say something is objectively beautiful, it kind of, what I'm saying, they kind of push it on the people and force it upon people in that way, right? So because when we think about the value of how can I say, of currencies, of money, for example, that's objective. That's objective. I can tell you that $5 is worth $5, or
Yes.
500 pennies, or 50 10-cent dimes, you know what I'm saying? Or what's that? Uh, 4 times 5. So 20 quarters, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
$5 is $5, right? But like you said before, you might find the Mona Lisa for you objectively mediocre. And I do too, not because I think the Mona Lisa was extraordinary piece of art, but compared to not other works of art that was around that period, but for me, compared to what Leonardo Da Vinci was producing, it was, you know, I think not his best work, even though it was one of the works that had much more story behind it. Now, my question is to you: does art become more or less valuable based on the story or the backstory that it has?
I think the backstory always creates like a little bit of a beauty to it. I think even on, like, I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, or it's a little bit too hippy dippy. But I think the essence of the backstory kind of permeates through the actual physical.
But we're talking about two different things. We're talking about a story. I can understand, like, for example, when you see someone, like, I know you take a basketball player or a football player or someone else, or even a rapper or even an actor, you can see their struggle from the hood permeate through their acting, through their playing. Yes, that's one thing. But if most artwork, let's be real, if we take most artwork, visual artwork
Hmm.
especially, if you don't know that story behind it, you can't really say, okay, apart from if we go to someone, if we think about the what was it called, I forget his name. It was when we have Kronos eating his son, Gore, what's his name, I forget. However, Kronos was the father of Zeus, etc., 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 and he ate his son. He ate all his children because he thought that was, that was a way for Greek mythology. He thought that was one of the ways to stop his children from dethroning him. You know what I'm saying? And Francisco Goya, that's his name, the Spanish painter Francisco Goya. Apart from him, he did do this painting with, Kronos or Uranus eating his children, and that was dark. You could see like you could see his upbringings or that story behind that. But in most art, if you would say, okay, this was from blah blah, blah and you invent a story, you say, oh wow, I can see that. Does it really permeate the reality of that artist whilst painting, or is that just that's one of those creations that we create for ourselves? There was a Roman philosopher called Ovidius, and he once said that quod volumus et credimus libenter. So we believe what we want to believe. So is it possible that we say, okay, wow, that story is so touching. I want to say that that artwork is special now. Do you think that that can happen sometimes? That we force a narrative on something to make it objectively beautiful.
Yeah, I think I think that definitely can play a part. I can see what you're saying. Like, I think people like story no matter what. It's like, what is it called? The hero's journey. Everybody likes the backstory, and a good backstory makes, once people know what the backstory is, that makes it definitely, if it's a good backstory, can make it more attractive. But I think, well, going back to what I was saying, I think it's kind of hard to separate the artist and the art. I think whatever the backstory of that artist is, it is going to show in what he produces or what she produces. You might, one person that would have a very sad upbringing are going to draw people with, are like going to draw people even though they may be smiling, with a tint of sadness. Like in a lot of Picasso's work, or I mean not Picasso's work, Van Gogh work. You know,
Mhm.
a very depressed individual, and you can see that hint of sadness in all of his work. The characters were like they all looked depressed and like they were about to cry. So, you know,
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, let's say this because the point I want to get at here is
mm,
this: there was a German artist in the 1970s, 1980s. This is a true story, right? By the name of Wolfgang Beltracchi.
mm,
He married an Italian Swiss woman, and he was able to counterfeit
mm,
paintings in the exact style of other artists. And he
mm,
signed it off as it was that artist. You know what I'm saying? So he was able to do impeccably a Picasso, a Pablo Picasso work of art, or a Salvador Dali's work of
mm,
art, right? And sign it off. But it wasn't, or do a Da Vinci's painting, but it wasn't Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man or Mona Lisa. But it was a completely new painting, but in the style of that artist, right? He
mm,
didn't live those lives, right? And in fact, if it hadn't been for forensics and them understanding that there were particular colors that didn't exist in those periods, they would not have ever caught him, So he
mm,
only got caught up for that particular reason. And people, they felt the story. They said, oh, wow, that is Max Ernst, or that is Francisco Goya, or that is, Salvador Dali. That is my name, Monet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So really, if I draw a line and you draw a line, it's very difficult for us to say that we want to convey a completely different idea behind drawing that line. You understand?
Well,
Or
when you talk about replicas, of course, is
no, it was
if you
not a replica. No, no, no. Be careful because he never counterfeited any artist.
but
He
you drew
used
it
their
exact.
exact
You,
style and forged their signature. That was all he did, right? There's a
but
big
he,
difference.
but it looks exactly like the original, right?
A lot. No, 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 no. He completely new works of art, like nothing similar to a Mona Lisa, but
Okay,
a Leonardo da Vinci-esque painting, and even art
interesting.
critics and art observers and art, what do they call them, the investigators, they all verified them as real works of art. You
Well, that
understand? So like,
was,
he created something exactly new, knew something new, but from the perspective of that other person. And that's the reason why I'll send you a link to the guy, but he was a genius. And because originally he was able to paint very well, but he said, why should I paint very well with the hopes that my paintings could help me make a living, or I can make a new Picasso in 30 minutes and fetch $1 million. Why would why would I do that? Because as long as I sell this story,
mm,
what I want to say is this, and I believe and I agree with you completely that an artist, he puts himself into his music, into the words of his poems, or
mm.
the words in a book or a novel or something that they're writing, or into the paint. But does that mean that, is that really what we're buying, or we're just buying some story that we want to feel good about, that we want to believe, that makes it sound more relatable? That's what I want to know, and that's what actually adds the value. How there are not many artists apart from Banksy arts, a lot of pieces of or works from Banksy, which actually fetch a lot of money during the life of that person. You understand? There are very few, very few. Even Basquiat didn't make so much money as his things would go for now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the same reason why a lot of musicians that don't record new stuff, because they just play cover music, because they know there's a built-in market for them to do a Rolling Stones cover or do a Jay-Z cover, than to try to create their own piece of art. You know what I'm saying? And that's why people even like, for the longest, sample beats too, because people know that, if I put this beat on there, I know people are going to resonate to that beat.
Yeah.
But there's still, I don't know. I think there's still an element. If you're not duplicating or replicating, I still think you are putting a essence of you into it, and that essence of you, that backstory, is still you trying to, you're paying homage to someone else. So
Definitely,
that,
but he signed
that
it not with his name. He signed it as the other person that he was
then,
he was
then
trying
that's
to
then that's
imitate.
that's fraudulent activity right there. So
That's
that's,
obviously that's fraudulent activity. By any law, say you sign someone else's name on your work. That's obviously fraud. But
mhm.
if we remove the legal aspects, because everything can be legal or illegal depending on the era
Well,
or the period. You know what I'm saying?
you're not
Slavery
being,
was
you're just
slavery was illegal. Say so was apartheid, and separatism was illegal at one point. So but what I'm saying is that let's think about what people, the viewer, the reader, the audience, what do we see when we see, like you said before, a Mona Lisa, or I don't know, Bernini's spirals, or I don't know, fucking Van Gogh, who's one of my Vincent Van Gogh is one of my favorite artists, but
mhm.
he drew some fucking sunflowers, dude. Like, really? They teach that in, what I'm saying, arts 101, you know what I'm saying? But it was because it was Van Gogh. It's Vincent. That was like pre-chopping the fucking ear off, you know what I'm saying, for him, you know what I'm saying? So really, how can you know what I'm saying? But it's that story. So if you create, if I, it's similar to what I would say, even when you think about some of the contemporary art installations. I know I'm quite sure you remember because it was worldwide, and you probably said, "What the is that?" The banana duct taped to a wall, and that was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, that's so beautiful. I can do that."
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? What's the story behind it? Oh, because if you know the story, like, I can do that and then make up a story. What do you mean? You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I was like, you know what? I was so tired that I was working, in construction, and a piece of tape fell off of me while I was
Mhm.
sleeping on the table, and I was eating a banana, like the banana fell. Yeah, I stuck to the fucking wall. What the fuck? Right.
Mhm.
So I think that we can, or when we're selling art, are we
Mhm.
selling also a different type of art? So if we're selling visual art, are we selling the story behind that art, or are we selling that art? That's my question. I'm not saying that one is beautiful, one is not beautiful. But I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
are we really selling, or are we really buying what we really are observing? That's what I want to know.
I think that the human psyche is very complex. So of
Mhm.
course the backstory is going to play a factor in how you perceive a piece of anything. And
Okay.
I think I think especially in Western society, or especially over the last 25 years, or even 50s, even hundreds of years,
Mhm.
marketing has been a big component to successful art
Okay.
deals. And so promoting backstories, promoting artists themselves, That those are metrics that make something more valuable and quote unquote objectively beautiful. But yeah, so I think that I think that's the backstory is big. Like even if you
Okay.
watch a movie, you say like, oh, this is based on a true story. So you really, for some reason, people
You,
tend to have,
yeah, you tune in. You extra tune in.
yeah, people tune in extra for instead of if it's just a fictionalized movie. So
All
yeah.
right. So perfect. Because you hit the nail on the head, and you actually. I was hoping that you would, without having to ask it to you. But you even mentioned the question that I had. You talked about art being in the backstory, being part of that human psyche. Do you think that's what separates us humans on this planet from other creatures because of this fact of creating art, whether it's visual, auditory, or what have you, and giving it a story?
Mhm.
You understand? So do you think that's what separates us from other creatures, other animals? Do you think that's the true difference between humanity and other animals?
That I
The,
don't know. See, everybody talks about what is it called? What's the word I'm looking for? That humans have. We're sentient beings and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
But who? I mean, who's
Well,
to
we're
say that?
all sentient. We're all even trees are sentient because
Yeah,
they
talking
feel
about
things.
what is the word I'm looking for? Sentient is not the word I'm looking for. There, it's just like it's like a higher level of formal logic.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
pretty much
yeah.
what you're describing in formal thinking and stuff like that. And like,
All right.
who's to say like the animals don't have that type of like
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
that have that.
Right,
I
right.
just
You know
don't,
what I'm
I
saying?
just don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't think even scientists can know unless they put these like birds and other animals to EKGs and stuff like that. But they know just from genomes that chimpanzees are like 98% alike,
98.9
very
percent like us. Yes, 98.9. Yeah,
genetically similar,
98.8. Yeah,
98
yeah. Well,
percent similar to other human beings. So you know, but
when you think about
it's
yeah,
also
when you think about that,
epigenetics is a big factor. So how things act, how genes activate is important in evolution.
yeah, but no, like you were saying before, who are we to know? Who are we to say that say a tree, even though a tree is sentient, it's not sapient. You know what I'm saying? Because when we have that sapience and that sentience, what
Yeah,
we think about is that sapience comes from to know,
yeah.
sapere, or sentience from sentire, to feel, right? But also we've noticed that there's a huge as world wide web
Mhm.
with mycosis and other mushrooms and everything, communicating down below. How do we know that a cat and a dog, or two cats, when they're saying like meow meow, like yo, what's up, man? You gonna hit up the club tonight? Meow 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 meow, right? Why do we know they're not saying that? You know what I'm saying? Because just like we have some animals who can actually see in a
Mhm.
semi ultraviolet,
Mhm.
semi ultraviolet spectrum, or we have other animals like dolphins who echolocate. You know what I'm saying? With sounds that we can't perceive. So
Mhm.
who's to know that these things here? But I want to know is that a lot of people say that because we can create art, this is, whether the art is beautiful or ugly or offensive or heart feeling or I'm gonna say moving, right? Does that really separate us from other creatures?
I mean, I think humans we've been on this quest for a long time to make our species very important. So
But
it's
I just not compared to a lot of other species. We're in crocodiles around at least 200 or at least 35 million years longer than we have. You know what I'm saying?
no question about that. A lot of reptiles have been around since the beginning of time that we know of. But in a lot of like fish actually been around since the beginning of time. So,
Yeah,
but it's just like when you get to these different types of metrics of defining what is beautiful, what is smart, what is sapien like, what is
yeah.
what is high
But
high
just the
high.
fact to create it, just the fact to create it, just the fact to
Yeah.
create it. So
So,
even if
so, so it's our world as we see it as Homo sapiens world is our so it's our story, it's our history. So we
okay,
we create we create the narrative, but I think maybe other animals can appreciate nature and like if you want to call it God's artwork in a way that even a lot of humans can. You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
You know.
No, definitely, definitely. No, no, in
Like,
fact,
like it's great to look at the lilies or the sunflowers by Van
yeah,
Gogh, but it's maybe something different if you're a deer and you're in the field just staring at the sunflowers
Yeah, but
in
that deer would have never created the sunflowers. That's what I'm saying. The difference is that
what
we actually create what could be, like I said, not
we
necessarily
create that.
beautiful. Because we said before, even this objective beauty, like
Mhm.
we established a few moments ago, is that can be subjectively imposed to us by so many people, bombarded in a way that it seems objective. But even if it's not beautiful, you know what I'm saying, but we still create it. It's very rare that they create things, you know. In nature, a lot of times, some animals may create some things, you know, maybe ant eaters or termites might create heels, but not because it's possibly beautiful naturalistically. It's because of how can I say efficiency, productivity, you know. So that's what I'm saying. That, you know, because we're the only creatures that actually create things that are non necessarily non productive or efficient, does that separate us from the others? Is that what makes us separate from the others? You know, that's my
Uh,
question.
I mean, it is one thing that separates us. I think we
Because
are.
that,
It
but
is
that
one.
gives us too much hubris, dude. That's why it gives us. We're put in a situation of this hubris of this, you know, this godlike mentality that, you know, it's possible we are, but that we're just so much superior than anything else. You know, I guess
Yeah,
this might be in this simulation that we're the strongest. It might be dolphins that's the
yeah.
strongest in another simulation. You know.
In this in this in our incarnation, it looks like we are the strongest or we are the best. But maybe in a parallel universe, we're not. You know what I'm saying? Or a parallel simulation, we're not. So a lot of this thing is subjective. But I think the true beauty of art is seeing art everywhere and seeing the beauty everywhere. And I think that's the true appreciation of beauty of art. I think sometimes a lot of animals they might not be as their formal thinking might not be as developed as ours, quote unquote,
Yeah.
but maybe they can appreciate art and beauty
Mhm.
for themselves. And maybe even themselves they're creating some art that humans can never create. Maybe like when a beaver building a dam that has a
Yeah.
lot of functionality,
Or beehive, or beehive, or beehive, or
or
beehive.
beehive,
Yeah.
but maybe there's
Yeah.
also artistry in it too. Maybe it's beyond function. Maybe there's artistry that they put
Okay.
into it also. So
Okay.
but who's
Okay.
to say? I think
Yeah.
I think it's arrogance of the human race, and I think that's why a lot of times so many humans are so discontent because of this need not only to make humans so important, but the need to make themselves important, make their
But that's part of the creation of art, though, right?
But
You
that is
know,
part of Christian art.
it's,
Well, to
that,
some
you know,
people,
it's
well,
that yin and yang, isn't it?
I think Van Gogh did stuff not to be to be appreciated. I think
No,
he
no,
just
no, definitely, definitely. No,
well,
but
he didn't bring money until after he died. I think he was just a very
yeah,
depressed soul. I think
yeah,
for
he
him
was very depressed.
for him to create art was just more of a release. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
but what I'm saying is something in our ability to, you know what I'm saying, that we can create art makes us feel that we're so much, you know, it plays to our ego. Not our conscious ego, but our subconscious ego. Or
For
let's say
sure.
this, our generational or our how to say, our physiological ego. That's what I want to say. Something that's bigger than us, you know what I'm saying? It's bigger
Mhm.
than us, you know. But art
Yeah,
is bigger than us. I think art is us, and without art, we are not. You know, so I think that the two they go intertwined hand in hand from our ancestors who were leaving handprints and drawing buffalo in the fucking caves. You know, what I'm saying 45 400,000 years ago. You know, so yeah, why not? You know, even building temples. You know, what I'm saying, for those who died were important. So
yeah. I think
art,
a lot of times back then, art was definitely more created for functionality. A lot
yeah.
of those hieroglyphics, maybe not 400,000 years ago, maybe 45,000 years ago. I think
Not
people,
even this, even less. When we talk about hieroglyphics, no, but there were, you know, when we talk about the first man and first women from Ethiopia, we're talking about first human Homo sapiens about 350,000 years ago. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, this
350,
they were
400,000.
completely nomadic. At that point, they were completely nomadic. However, you know, they were probably they was even banging the Neanderthals also in that time. So it's like the real human wasn't around back then. You know,
Well,
so yeah.
that's the theory. When there were actually there's a lot of people out there theorizing the Neanderthals are actually smarter and much stronger than us.
Okay.
So,
Very possibly, very possibly. Why not? The
but
key is like your boy Dave Chappelle said, is to take that dictator's face off the money, and that's how you change people. You know, so if you eradicate another species, that makes you superior. You know.
for sure, it becomes your